Welcome to my quick start guide for the Polyend Synth. Today's patron shout out goes to Raf. Thank you so very much for the support. Let's get started. Couple things really quick. I would just like to apologize. I am feeling a bit under the weather, so my voice isn't 100%. Also, because this is the first time the Polyend Synth has shown up on the channel, even though this isn't a review, I will say Polyend did send this to me to check out. Just want to get that out in the open. So the Polyend Synth is a multi-engine polyphonic synthesizer. Basically, it's got 8 different synth engines and it has a pad grid that you can use to play up to 3 of those at the same time. It's also got effects and an arpeggiator and a basic sequencer. So to get started, the first thing you're going to want to understand is scenes. Scenes are a collection of different combinations of synths. Like I said, you get up to 3 at once. And then the pad grid of which you're using to control those. Different color pads represent different synths. You can change scenes just by pushing the scene button and then using the main encoder here to find a scene you want, clicking it in, and there we go. To adjust the individual synthesizers within a scene, you use these buttons here. So this would be synth 1. You can see that the color right above the button here on the screen is blue, which means this is synth 1. This is synth 2, yellow, and this is synth 3, purple. All of these controls are mapped to the screen here. We can switch between the different sections of our synth with these buttons over here. So this is the main engine page. We can click that to get to multiple pages, or we can use the encoder to scroll between them. Same with the filter, ADSR envelope section, the LFO pages, and to get to mod, we actually hold Shift and then push the sequencer button, which will take us to the modulation page. That's where you can map your different modulation routings. Again, you can switch between your 3 synths at any time with these buttons down here. To change engines or presets on an individual synth, simply select the synth that you wish to change, then hold Shift and either press the scene button, where you can see it says preset underneath, or you can push the engine button. From here, you can scroll through presets of the particular synth engine that you're on, or you can click Engines and then use the main encoder here to scroll between the different engines, and then select your preset. You can also initialize a preset just by clicking the Initialize button. Let's look at the other half of scenes now, which are the grid layouts. So to access those, click the main encoder in, scroll to Grid, and select it. From here, we can use these 3 knobs to control the grid layout. As you can see as I'm scrolling through them, the grids themselves are changing here. We can also select the scale and the root note of our scene. And yes, these all save per scene, which is really cool. Now these knobs here actually represent how the pads themselves will map to our 3 synths. So synth 1, synth 2, synth 3. The top encoder is actually going to pick our mode, which in this case is either note or follower. I'm not going to get super in depth with these. Basically, you can set some to have chords on them, and then you can set other tracks to follow the chords. Hear how that note there is changing depending on the chord? Yeah, it's pretty cool. And you can also choose the root note of each of the different sections as well. And that's done with the bottom row here. If you do have a chord mode selected for one of your synths, you can scroll through those chords with the middle row. That's pretty much it for the basics of scenes. Let's get in and talk about the other buttons here. So Mixer takes you to a mixer for all 3 of your synths, where the top row of encoders here represents the level of the synths, and the colors, again, match the pads. Too much. The middle row is the panning, and the bottom row actually has to do with your effects. Now, speaking of effects, to get to effects sends, we simply hit the mixer button again. Now we have effects sends for all 3 of our tracks. The top row of encoders is going to be the modulation effect send for all 3 of our tracks, 1, 2, 3. The middle row is the delay send, and the bottom row is the reverb send. To adjust the effects themselves, hold Shift and push the mixer button where it says effects underneath. Now we have the effects section. The first page is going to be your modulation effect. We can either use the main encoder and scroll or go Shift and mixer again to access the second page, which is the delay effect, and the third page, which is the reverb effect. Once again, the knobs over here are going to map to the parameters on screen. It's pretty self-explanatory. And finally, at least finally for this video, let's talk about the arpeggiator and sequencer. So to access those, just hit the sequencer button right here. Just like back on the main screen, these three buttons down here now once again select which synth we are dealing with. I just set up an initialized scene, so none of my synths have any arpeggiators or sequencers on them. It's pretty simple. This top left knob here is going to determine whether we don't have anything on a synth, whether we have an arpeggiator, or whether we have a sequencer. Let's go back to ARP really quick and look at these parameters. Again, they're pretty self-explanatory. We've got swing here. Gonna leave that off. We've got type up here, which is going to determine how the arpeggio actually plays through the notes. Again, these are pretty self-explanatory. We've got groove on this encoder here, which is going to give you 11 different rhythms to choose from. We've got humanize, which is going to sort of randomize the micro timings. I'm going to set it back to groove 1 to demonstrate that. And it is a different feel than swing, so I like that they give you both of those options. Then down here we have our rate. You can go from whole notes all the way to 64ths. We'll leave that at 16ths. You've got gate length on the middle bottom encoder, pretty self-explanatory. And then you also have octave range down here on the bottom right. And that's it. Now before we wrap up, let's set this to sequence instead. Here we have a lot of the same settings like swing, groove, humanize, rate, gate length, but we have a play/record option. So right now it's on play and it's not doing anything. That's because we don't have any sequence recorded. So to record a sequence, we actually need to turn this top right encoder to record. Now we can enter in a series of notes and they'll play back just as we entered them. You can see the notes actually are represented on screen there. When you're finished recording, just turn the knob up here back to play. When you turn it back to record, it will erase what was there, just a heads up. If you want to add rests, simply use Shift. Sure. And there you go, those are the basics of the sequencer. Now, there's quite a bit that I didn't cover. There's macros, there's, all the sound design functionality. You can actually get really in-depth with the grid too and do some pretty cool stuff. But this is a quick start guide. I just wanted to give you enough to get up and running with your Polyend synth. I do hope you found this video informative or at least entertaining. If you did, be sure to leave a like on it. If not, you can always leave a dislike. Doesn't hurt my feelings, just makes me try that much harder next time. Either way, be sure to hit that subscribe button, ring that notification bell. Thank you all so very much for being here. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye.